seconds and counting.
Hey, what's good, guys? It's Clutch here. Essam here, back with another video. And for today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Houston Texans. I'm going to be talking about the trade deadline, different trade targets that the Houston Texans could possibly go after, or at least inquire about. And the trade deadline is quickly approaching. It's going to be on October 31st this year, which is Halloween. So that's going to be pretty exciting. You get to see the trade deadline happen like around 3 or 4 Houston time. And then at night, people trick-or-treating and whatnot, scary movies and everything. So hopefully it would be a good day for Texans fans. Hopefully seeing a big move, a big player coming to Houston, and then having that nice night of Halloween. I'm going to be talking about multiple players that Houston could inquire about and that I personally would really want to inquire about. I've been listening about like 4, maybe 5 names at most. There's not too many players. Like most of the time, teams are going to come out and say, hey, this player is available for trade. Most of the time when you see trades happen, it's players that are like, that you wouldn't expect to get traded. Like there's a reason GMs would put out this player's name that he's available for trade. Most of the time, it's not for a good reason. Maybe they just simply don't want him or something like that. So most of the time when a team trades for a player, you don't hear about it until it actually happens. So that would probably be the case. Hoping not in this situation because the Texans are actually, I wouldn't say linked to Chase Young, but I remember seeing something about Chase Young to the Texans earlier this offseason. It was before the draft. I can't remember if it was from the same people who actually posted something recently about Chase Young to Houston, but Chase Young's been, I wouldn't say rumored, but he's been talked about a potential target for the Houston Texans. This time it was posted by the 33rd team. They're kind of like PFF in a way, like how PFF have their website, like with different articles, different stats and whatnot. That's kind of what the 33rd team is. And I'm not going to just straight up say they don't have any sources or any links to news that could happen, but I don't think they're too dialed in as for say like ESPN or PFF or anybody like that would be. But I'm sure they have some type of news, or some type of head in the door. But they actually linked Chase Young to the Houston Texans. Their exact reasoning was that the Washington Commanders invested big money into their 2 defensive tackles, being Jonathan Allen and De'Aaron Payne, and it probably just wouldn't be smart for them to invest in another big-time money defensive line signing. And it really doesn't make sense. I mean, from a logical standpoint, there's not enough cap for 3 players on that defensive line. So they think that maybe with them declining his 5th-year option, he would either be a free agent this offseason, I believe, or he'd be available for trade this year. And they're predicting that Houston trades a 2nd-round pick for Chase Young. And, I mean, that's pretty good value, I think. Chase Young's been great this season. His stats are pretty good. I mean, I can't lie. His stats are 31 QB hits, 4 sacks, 22 hurries, 6 TFLs with a 78.7 pass rush grade. And that's pretty good. I mean, match that up with Will Anderson, Jonathan Grenard, Jerry Hughes. I'm forgetting another pass rusher's name. We have so many pass rushers right now. But adding Chase Young into a pass rush room, into a defensive line room, that's young, talented, has players, but adding another guy that's young, full of potential, I want to say he's 23, and he was talked about as one of the most dominating, or he's 24 actually, he's going to be 25 this offseason. So still young, a little bit older than what I thought, but still very young. For a guy that was talked about as one of the better defensive line prospects over the past few years when he was coming out. He was a monster at Ohio State. He just hasn't been healthy, but this year that he's finally been healthy, he's been better, been putting up stats, been creating havoc, been affecting the offense that he plays against pretty well. So adding him with Will Anderson and then, of course, other guys on the defensive line, I think that would be a great move for Nick Caserio, and especially if it only costs a 2nd. You have to think about it from a smart aspect, or from a smart standpoint. This year in the draft, I wouldn't say it's pretty deep for defensive linemen. As far as defensive interiors, I think it's pretty good. But in terms of edges, I don't think it's the best, or at least that deep. You got Jared Verse at the top, and then outside of that, I'm not going to lie, I haven't looked too much at the 2024 class. All I know is Jared Verse. But we have to look at it from the standpoint of, can you get a better player than Chase Young in the 2nd round? you have a second round pick right now, right? So would you rather trade that for a proven player in Chase Young, who, yes, he does have his baggage of injuries, but if he is able to stay healthy, he has the potential to be a top, I wouldn't want to say top 10 pass rusher, top 10 defensive end in this league, and pair that up with another top 10, possibly top 10 pass rusher and Will Anderson, and I mean, that's a recipe for success on defense. That's really all you have to worry about on the defensive line. Maybe just get a couple of interiors. They could just be subpar at best, and we're going to be cooking on that defensive line. So you have to think of it from that standpoint. Would you rather trade a second-round pick for that type of player who has the potential to come in and be a top 10, maybe, defensive end? Or would you want to take a gamble? Maybe you want to draft a different position. I don't know. Maybe you want to go after a wide receiver in the second round. Would you rather have faith in that or try to get a player that's already, for the most part, somewhat proven? And that's how I look at it, and I think I would rather take Chase Young, especially for a second-round pick. That's pretty good value. Yes, you do have to pay him, or I think you could just franchise tag him for the year and let him play out on that and see what type of deal he earns after that. But you will have to eventually pay him. That's probably the biggest concern, that and then the injury history. But the next player I want to talk about is safety/linebacker Jeremy Chin from the Carolina Panthers. And the Panthers, they probably just want to get rid of players, just try to accumulate picks. They don't really have too many, at least premier picks. Jeremy Chin wouldn't net them anything like a first, a second, probably not even a third. I think Jeremy Chin would more likely go for like a fourth or maybe even a fifth-round pick. Jeremy Chin, he had a great start to his career. He looked like one of the better safeties in the NFL, and then he just slowly started to have a down year this year. He's only played 24 snaps in the past 2 weeks, which is kind of concerning for them. I think it's more so because they're trying to move him, and I think that's the obvious, not the obvious move for them. I think I would rather keep him. He could be a key cornerstone to that defense, but I think him playing 24 snaps is pretty obvious that they are trying to move him. So I think Houston should definitely be attentive to that. Yes, I did mention he's a safety, but he can also play linebacker. So we can bring him in as like a rotational guy, give Petrie a rest, give Jimmy Ward a rest, give Blake Cashman, Christian Harris, Denzel Perryman a rest. He could probably play all of those positions. Obviously not every position as the linebacker. He'd be more so of probably a blitzing linebacker or a pass coverage linebacker. I wouldn't trust him playing like middle linebacker or anything like that. He would just be in charge of covering a specific zone or like the running back or tight end or something like that. I wouldn't trust him too much in terms of starting as a linebacker. But safety, he's a pretty good safety. I think I would trust him back there. Give our other safeties a break. Maybe even be a future Jimmy Ward replacement. Jimmy Ward is kind of up there in age. So maybe try to have Jeremy Chin slowly come into this defense, and then in a couple years when Jimmy Ward probably does move on, maybe a year or two, then we have Jeremy Chin to step up. And Jeremy Chin and Jalen Petrie, I think that would be a great safety duo, as Jimmy Ward and Jalen Petrie are right now. So I think I would definitely try to inquire about Jeremy Chin. One thing also is it is also his contract year, so you have to see about that. What do you want to give up a fourth-round pick, fifth-round pick, and then probably have to pay him at the end of the year? I'm not sure. I was just going to see how Nick Caserio and Cole view him. But the next player I want to talk about is Marquise Brown. Now, I'm not sure if he ends up getting traded or not. I would think they want him to stick around either for Kyler Murray or Caleb Williams if they decide to go down that route. But there has been rumors about Marquise Brown potentially being traded, and I think if I'm Houston, I would definitely be all over that. They did trade up a premium pick to get Marquise Brown from the Ravens. I want to say it was a first-round pick. I think it was a first-round pick. I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember. I think it was a draft night trade type of thing, if I remember correctly. And I think it was for a first-round pick. It was either a first or a second. So I'm not sure if the Arizona Cardinals would want something similar to that. I'm not sure if they would want similar compensation. But at the least, at the most, I think if I'm Houston, I would definitely try to offer up a third-round pick. Anything more than that, I'm not sure. I would probably just have to look elsewhere via the draft or free agency this year. But Marquise Brown, I would definitely take a look into. Third-round pick at most. He's still pretty young. I think he's like 25, 26. He has a very good arsenal of traits to him. His hands, they're not the best, but in terms of yak ability, he's really good. Speed, he's one of the fastest players in the NFL, or at least fastest receivers in the NFL. So adding that into this type of offense, we already have the physical specimen in Nico Collins. We have the safety blanket in Robert Woods. We have the hopeful project in Xavier Hutchinson, the young kid who hopefully can develop into being a at least a contributor to the wide receiver room for us. We have Tank Dell, who's kind of that gadget slash just get the ball in his hands and make magic happen. And then getting Marquise Brown, who would truly be that deep threat. It's where CJ Stroud can just launch the ball downfield. I think that would bring a whole nother dynamic to this offense, and he would really help. In terms of blocking, I'm not sure if he's the best. I know in this scheme, they really want the wide receivers to block, and I don't know if Marquise Brown is going to be able to be up to that, but it would be interesting to see. So Marquise Brown, I would definitely at least maybe inquire about, see what exactly it would cost. The next player is Jerry Jeudy. I'm not really going to mention too much about him. I'm just going to straight up say I don't want him. I mean, it doesn't make too much sense for us. The Broncos, I'm not sure how much they would value him for. There's been rumors they want a third. There's been rumors they want a second. I'm not sure if I would even consider giving up either of those two picks. The only wide receiver I think I would give up a third for is Marquise Brown. But yeah, Jerry Jeudy, I just don't want. I don't see the appeal in him. I would rather just get one in the draft or free agency in the offseason. And there's also going to be other players that are talked about. There's not, again, as I said in the beginning of this video, most of the time players aren't going to be talked about like wide, heavily, like in the news. So if they're not like a real, like again, as I said, you're not going to hear about a player being traded until they're actually traded if it's a good type of, if it's a good move. Like most of the time, you're going to hear about Jerry Jeudy. Like we already see what's happening with Jerry Jeudy. He's not the best locker room. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say he's not the best locker room guy. But we did see that little confrontation with Stephen Smith, that little argument, dispute thingy, and that's just not going well for him. Maybe a change of scenery really does help him, but stuff like that. Most of the time when you hear about guys like that, stuff like that's going to happen. It's not the best of situations or whatnot. But yeah, let me know what y'all guys think. Let me know what y'all guys would want at the trade deadline. Who are y'all's most favorite possible trade target? For me, again, I think it's Chase Young. Pairing Chase Young with Will Anderson would just be phenomenal for this team, for this defense, for the future. But yeah, it's been Clutch Entertainment, and I hope you guys have a good day. Peace.